Here we are, streaming once again. Here we are. How you guys doing? Hope you're all doing well out there. Holy cow. I just slept today. That's what happened today. I didn't have anything else to do. I didn't have anywhere else to go. So I just slept. And slept and slept and slept. That was nice. Got up, took a look at today's news, right? Lots going on as always in the world. I wish I was still in bed though, I gotta tell you. I wish I was still in bed, just like cozied up, relaxed. It's nice to have days like this, you know? It's nice to have days like this. I'm just about to go back onto the capitalist grind, right? Gotta pay those bills. Gotta pay those bills. For some reason, right? Because everybody needs food and everybody needs shelter, but you gotta sell yourself to a capitalist or else you don't get food and shelter. Normal society, being normal, having a normal one. And so, of course, in a society that values productivity over anything else, resting can be revolutionary. This is why I say, right? Like, stop participating in this nonsense. Like, stop participating and stop feeling guilty about it. There's this phenomenon that definitely happens. It happens with me, and I see other people talking about it, right? Where they're like, yeah, I took a vacation, or I took a break, or I took a rest, right? And I felt guilty about it. And I felt bad about it, you know? And people do feel bad about that, about taking care of their own self. And there's this odd little phenomenon. Compton, good to see you. Always a pleasure. There's this odd little phenomenon where... Hold on. Isaac says China is reselling liquid gas bought from China to Europe? I don't understand. So it's reselling liquid gas bought from China. I don't get it. Yeah, Sailor Moon for socialism, you bet. Oh, China is reselling liquid gas. Nope, still don't get it, guys. China, like, from Russia. So China is reselling liquid gas bought from Russia to Europe from... Nope, don't get it. Who's buying what from who? I don't understand. China is buying gas from Russia and selling it to Europe? Is that right? So China is buying gas from Russia and then reselling it to Europe? If so... Yeah, that's hilarious. That's super hilarious, dude. Like, so China buys gas. Is it, like, this is capitalism. Like, worthless middlemen just inserting themselves into things to get around sanctions and things like this that are placed by, like, so fucking stupid. Europe is buying gas from China that China bought from Russia. Like, first of all, like, I'm not surprised to see, like, something like this is happening. Like, the political problem of Europe freezing in the winter, right? Like, if you're the leader of a country, you just can't accept that, like, yeah, my citizens are gonna freeze and then they'll completely support me. Like, no, it's not gonna happen. Like, you've got to find a solution to this. Like, this is a big problem. And so it's hilarious to me that, like, Russia sells to China, and it makes sense because Russia's selling at a reduced rate, right? So from Russia's perspective, they're like, well, we need to sell this stuff to make money, so we're going to reduce the rate. We'll sell it to China. Then China's turning around selling it to Europe, probably at an inflated price, right? So China, once again, right, all of this sanctioning and all these ideas that America has about how to operate on the world stage are just blowing up in their face yet again. And who's walking away with the wealth? China. right? Who's walking away with the money? China. Like, we're going to do a war on that region, and that'll get the Russians to come in, and that'll weaken Russia, and that'll mean that China gets weaker, and all of that. Oh, live chat. Let's go back to top chat, and then let's go back to live chat. I don't understand. Yeah, we'll get into that, Ligandes, for sure. So, for those of you, and I've got it right here. Like, I've got it right here. And you pointed out some things, Ligandes, that are absolutely true. And I definitely do want to talk about it. In fact, what the hell? Let's just get into it. Let's just get into it, guys. I have been following the Uyghur genocide narrative for a long, long time. And I was really, really hoping that this United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner, oh yeah, that's right, you guys have to go to live chat as well. This is so dumb. I hate this. Why does this exist? This must be something that matters when there's like 100,000 people. Anyway. I've been following the Uyghur genocide narrative for a long time. My general position is that it's a CIA op. That's always been my position. And the more I learn about it, the more I see that it is definitely the CIA has been taking advantage of... the CIA has been taking advantage of the refugee crisis that the American war on the Middle East has created all around it, right? Including in China. The Chinese, of course, in response to this, have released their own document where they go through all of this. And yet they filter for controversial words like China and imperialism. Yeah. How dare you guys talk about China? You're talking about China. We can't have that. Anyway. And I was really looking forward to this report from Michelle Bachelet. And the reason why I was looking forward to it is because I never believed that the UN Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner would be so stupid as to use CIA sources in the report. That's always been my position. I just never believed that they would be so stupid and idiotic, frankly, to use CIA assets. And when I first read the report, I did a search for the classic stuff, Zens and all this, and nothing came up. And so I thought, okay, they've done it. Here's a report that they've done where they've gone in and they've had the conversations and they've done the stuff themselves, right? But it turns out that there was like a formatting issue. Somebody pointed out to me. You do a search of the document, Zens, Adrian Zens, there's the man, right? Cited not once but twice. There's the Victims of Communist Fund is all throughout this. CIA assets all throughout this, right? And to me, that like it's frustrating. For me, it's frustrating because I want the UN to go in and tell a story of what they see. That's what I want, right? And the UN Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner is exactly the institution who I feel should be doing this, right? And they should have enough awareness of what's going on in global politics and on the world stage to understand that you can't source the CIA in these documents, guys. Like, you straight up can't. Like, most of the world is going to look at this and be like, yeah, but this is the CIA. Like, why do we give a shit with the CIA? The CIA is the largest terrorist organization on the planet, by far. Nothing comes even close, right? Like, we're all sitting here being like, Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and all this. Well, you know who's even worse than that, but in large measures, in leaps and bounds, is the CIA, right? Like, the CIA is an international terrorist organization that is extremely well funded, that has gone rogue. They're accountable to no one. Like, it requires enormous congressional action to get even the most basic of information out of these guys. Like, when the CIA was torturing people, it required, like, a dedicated, pressing congressional action to move forward to even find out that the CIA was running a torture campaign, right? And then once they found out that the CIA was running a torture campaign, the CIA basically went, "We're sorry," and then that was it. That's essentially what happened. And, like, no one went to jail. There wasn't even fines or anything. It literally was just like, "Yeah, we tortured people. We're sorry," and that's it, right? So the CIA is a rogue terrorist organization, and to me, it means this document's extremely disappointing. I'm extremely disappointed by this document, and I'm extremely disappointed that the UN Commissioner for the High Office would even use CIA sources at all, right? Like, because to me it discredits the entire thing. Like, initially I was willing to stand here, and the narrative that I was seeing coming out of this document was that the Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner is saying that there are human rights violations going on, right? But that they're not systemic, right? That they're getting reports of abuse and violence within the Uyghur Autonomous Region, Xinjiang, right? But my takeaway is like, yeah, but it wasn't systemic, right? So even this report where they're using CIA assets and using CIA documents, right, was the even this document isn't saying that the abuses that they're seeing are systemic. And in fact, this document points out that Chinese law is quite positive towards minority groups and Uyghurs and all of this, right? And so I was walking away going, okay, so what they're capturing is the horrors of war, right? That when you're in war, right? When you're in war, horrible things happen, and people do horrible things to one another, right? That war brings out the absolute worst in people. And it's likely that while China is attempting to deal with this refugee crisis, and while it's attempting to deal with the insanity of extremist jihadi terrorism, which is what they're dealing with, that there are Chinese people and Chinese officials in positions that go beyond what the law prescribes for them to do. I think that's... And honestly, even though I'm quite skeptical of CIA documentation and all that, I'm convinced... absolutely. Right? Come on. Let's not be babies about this. Right? There are definitely going to be, like, prison guards and police officers and military personnel and officials in China that are put in positions, and they are going to abuse that power, right? That's going to happen. Like, if we want to be adults and have an adult conversation, that's going to happen. And I was willing to stand here and say, this seems to be what the United Nations has captured. That they've captured these cases. Like, we're dealing with millions and millions and millions of people, right? So you're telling me in a million cases, there isn't going to be a single case where a police officer or a guard has abused their position of power? Of course there is. Like, that's war, and it should be expected, frankly. That's why war is hell. It's why it's terrible, right? And so I was willing to sort of sit there and say that we are... that's what we're looking at. But it isn't systemic. Even with the CIA assets and all this kind of stuff in it, the document, in my view, does not show a clear genocide, right? It doesn't show a clear case of genocide. It shows a people dealing with a war and dealing with a conflict, right? And that war and that conflict affecting them as well. That's what I see. But then I find out that it's through just like a simple formatting error, through just like a simple, like me not like my search function not working properly because of a formatting thing, that it's covered in CIA assets and CIA sources. I'm extremely disappointed. I'm extremely disappointed. Like the UN, like it knows. Like, it knows what it's doing. Like, it knows what it's done with that. It understands that if it's using CIA sources, if it's using CIA assets, right, if it's using that kind of thing, then we are, they know what they're doing, right? They know that they're putting forward something to support an imperial power. They know, right? So the question becomes, why do it, right? Ligandise's theory is as good as any. I think she had to do this to save her credibility at the last moment. She gave in. Yeah. Yeah, of course. And Ligandise is right. Like, this actually does happen, not just in Xinjiang. Local powers in China have been known to go corrupt and do shady shit. The central government long had a hard time dealing with this. Yeah, Xi Jinping was elected on a platform of combating corruption. Right? You don't get the leader of the country elected on a platform of fighting corruption unless there's corruption, right? So here, I was willing to accept, and this is what's so frustrating to me, is like, they could have released this document and just removed the citations and removed the CIA stuff, but it's almost like they put that in, they like left it in there just to be like, yeah, This is an extension of a CIA operation, and that the CIA and the influence of the CIA has now reached even the United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner. It's deeply concerning to me. Like, I'm deeply concerned as to why the UN would feel the need to use CIA assets and use CIA documentation within their claims, right? And so, of course, China has released a secondary or a statement of their own, right? And the statement is essentially the story, and you can basically see it by reading the table of contents, right? Xinjiang's fight against terrorism and extremism is both necessary and just, right? Terrorist and extremist activities were rampant in Xinjiang. People of various ethnic groups in Xinjiang suffered greatly from the scourge of terrorism and extremism. Fighting terrorism and extremism in Xinjiang is a pressing need. Fighting terrorism and extremism in Xinjiang is endorsed and supported by people of all ethnic groups. Like, they're fighting against jihadist terrorism in the region. Like, that's what's happening. Like, and so it's such a. I'm frustrated by this. I really was hoping that this was going to be a clarifying document, right? I really was hoping that this was going to bring clarity and bring some kind of, if not a consensus, definitely an outside eye. I think that's what I was looking for more than anything else, is I was looking for an outside eye on this, right? And and moreover, I was willing to accept like a negative narrative from the United Nations, from this outside perspective and from this outside eye. But like, I'm sorry, man, if you're including Adrian Zenz in your document, like, it's corrupted. It's plain and simple. Like, I can't believe any of this. I can't trust any of this, right? And then it gets even better when, like, a lot of the times when they are citing things, let's see if I can find one right away, they're just literally like, oh yeah, this was just a UN interview, right? Like we just had a UN interview with these people, and I'm like, did you though? Like, did you, or are you just taking? And then there's this unofficial translation that goes on. I'm just like, yeah, source, trust me, bro. You know, which like initially I was willing to accept that, because I thought to myself, okay, this is the UN. They've gone in. They've made a conversation about it. They've talked about it, right? Yeah, this is it. OHCHR interviews, right? Okay, like, I'm willing to accept that. They went in and they did the interviews and all this, but now I'm like, did they? Probably not, honestly. Probably not. Looks to me like they just basically took the CIA sources, right, and just ran with the CIA sources. And it's like, I'm just extremely, extremely, extremely disappointed by this. And I was hoping better. I was hoping for better. I was hoping for something that was more, at least an outsider's perspective. At least the perspective of an outside view. So I'm definitely willing to accept the narrative that there are, like, abuses that you can find in Xinjiang over this period of time, but I don't think that that's, like, a condemnation of the Chinese system of government. That's just humanity. That's just humans. Like, yeah, put anybody in any position of power anywhere ever, and they are inevitably going to abuse that power in some degree, right? And especially if you have millions and millions of people involved in this kind of stuff, right? Yeah, you're gonna find that. Like, it's an inevitability, right? And so to take the inevitability of these sorts of things, dealing with the conflict and dealing with the war, and pretend as though that's a condemnation of the system of government and the people themselves. And of course, the people who are condemning the loudest are the most guilty of these sorts of things. Like, who's supporting, like, an open-air genocide in Israel? Who's supporting an open-air genocide in Yemen? Right? Like, it's the United States. Who's literally building border walls and has ICE detention centers? Right? Like, it's very, very, and I know I've said it a couple of times. But, like, I was really hoping this was going to be a clarifying document. Something that we could point to and be like, oh, hey, like when the UN went into Venezuela. When the UN went into Venezuela, I found that to be a very clarifying document. Right? Like, it was a moment when the UN looked at what was happening in Venezuela and said, you know what's really killing these guys, right? Like, what's really killing these Venezuelans is the sanctions. The United States sanctions is what's really causing a lot of the problems. Are there things that the Venezuelans can do to improve their lot? Sure, right? But lifting these sanctions is number one. Number one, easy. And that was a very clarifying document. Because it didn't use CIA sources. It wasn't interested in following the imperialist line, right? Whereas this, so we're exactly where we are, basically, right? So now you're gonna see lots of Western sources be like, well, the United Nations said, look at the United Nations document that the United Nations said. And we're still back on this, yeah, right, like Adrian Zen's, the Uyghur World Congress, the democracy shit, the Congress, the communist, blah 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 blah, right? It's the same shit. It's the same shit, and that's what makes it so fucking disappointing. Like, it's just the same trash. And, like, but now it's being done in this, like, gigantic, supposedly third-party organization, citing fucking CIA sources, just being stenographers for the CIA, the largest terrorist organization on the planet. Like, it's extremely disappointing. It's extremely disappointing. And I would, and of course, right, China's statement Here, let's just get to the conclusion. Conclusion. Facts speak louder than words, and truth is not to be tampered with. Xinjiang's counterterrorism and de-radicalization efforts have achieved remarkable outcomes. Taking stock of its practice, we can draw the following conclusions. Xinjiang adheres to the principle that everyone is equal before the law, and the accusation that its policy is based on ethnic discrimination is groundless. The Constitution of the People's Republic of China stipulates that all ethnic groups of the People's Republic of China are equal, which, incidentally, this report even confirms. The state shall protect the lawful right and interest of all ethnic minorities and uphold and promote relations of equality, unity, mutual assistance, and harmony among all ethnic groups. Discrimination against and oppression of any ethnic group are prohibited. Any act that undermines the unity of ethnic groups or creates division among them is prohibited. The principles and the spirit of the Constitution are fully embodied in Xinjiang's fight against terrorism and extremism, which never targets any particular region, ethnicity, or religion, but aims to realize the equal rights of all ethnic groups. This is the purpose and the goal of Xinjiang's counterterrorism and de-radicalization policy. The allegation that the policy is formulated based on ethnic discrimination is untenable and is a gross distortion and a smear of Xinjiang's effort. Like, what have I been saying all this time about this kind of stuff? I've been saying that when cultures commit a genocide, they don't do it quietly, right? There's no such thing as a secret genocide. There's no such thing as a genocide occurring, and the people committing it saying, oh no, we support the rights of all ethnic groups. Like when Hitler eradicates the Jews, he does so openly. When we commit to a genocide against the First Nations people through the residential system, we do so openly, right? When cultures turn this way and begin committing to genocides, they do it openly. And moreover, you have to do it openly. There's no other way to do it. Committing a genocide against a people is an enormous organizational feat. It requires a lot of effort and resources and time, right? You have to actually put people in positions and organize them, and you can't do it quietly. It's not possible, right? And every document that I see coming out of China, every single time, it's the exact opposite. They're constantly saying, how do we improve the lot for the people in Xinjiang? How do we increase the quality of life there? Even this document talks about how the Uyghurs were not, they were exempt from the one-child policy, for example. It's like, how can you claim a genocide while simultaneously the people who are supposedly being genocide are exempt from one-child policies that exist on the entire populace, right? Show me some documents that have the Chinese government organizing and planning a genocide against the Uyghur population, right? And then we'll talk. Because that's the only way you can actually do it. Like, I can't believe that this point doesn't get said more often. I can't believe that I've never heard any other leftist say it, right? Like, this is the thing that kills me about this. Is that, like, to organize millions of people to create a system of systemic eradication, even if it's just a cultural genocide, right? It requires enormous organization. It requires enormous planning from documents that would be in the public, that people could see and find and look at. It would require votes. It would require communiques. It would require a lot of effort. A lot of effort. And the accusation is... And the accusation is essentially that China is doing a genocide that they're not planning. Like, it's just, what is it then? It's just an accidental genocide? Like, I'm bummed about it, man. I'm really bummed about this. I was really, really hoping that this was going to be like the Venezuela document was. I was really hoping that it was going to be clarifying. I was really hoping that was going to be a moment where we could all look and be like, okay, this is what's actually happening. I'm super bummed about it. And, like, it's fucking stupid. Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, it's fucking stupid. You're using the CIA as sources? What the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Like, how to discredit yourself in one easy step. One easy trick to discredit yourself, right? Just use the CIA as sources. Just be a stenographer for the CIA, right? And now the only people who are going to take this seriously are people who are already fine with the idea that the CIA works for them, right? So imperialists. So now all you've done is basically hand over to the imperialists the document that they need to continue their imperialism, right? Like, just fucking brutal. Just fucking brutal. Yeah, show me the hundreds of thousands of refugees fleeing from China to Europe, America, Canada. Yeah. Like, where's the refugee crisis going the other way? Right? If it's a genocide, right? If it's an ethnic cleansing, you should see people running from it, right? Yeah, I'm just looking for the refugee crisis. Why no U.S. asylum granted to the victims? CIA using extremists in China, Russia, and other countries for decades. Jake Sullivan. Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Yep. Leaked emails from 2012. United oligarchs have always been very anti-China, which is weird because they gave their manufacturing to China. Like, that's the weirdest part about all of this. Is that they're like, China's a problem. We gotta go after China. Let's create a genocide narrative and cause all kinds of problems for China, and then we'll go to war with China. But make sure you give all the manufacturing to China, too. Right? Like, oh, we're all supposed to hate China, and China's the worst, and oh my god, they're such a problem, and oh my goodness, they're the rising power, and all that kind of stuff. You gave your manufacturing to these guys. Like, that's the part of it that's just, like, the most blistering, insane part of this conversation. That I'm supposed to genuinely buy into this idea that the United States, like, that China is like this big threat, and we're all like, the United States is like constantly trying to convince us and propagandize against us, to tell us that. Well, they literally give their manufacturing to these people. I don't know how to take this seriously anymore. Like, I don't. Al-Qaeda was a CIA creation, trust me, bro. I'm serious. I actually think that's true, if it's the one I'm thinking of, Al-Qaeda. I mean, Osama bin Laden was CIA trained. Like, that's straight up the case. So, like, I wouldn't be too surprised to find out that was true. And I mean, that's not even that controversial. Like, this, if Al-Qaeda wasn't CIA created, right, it certainly was funded and trained, right? Like the narrative of the CIA training far-right elements of a society and arming them in order to foment a coup and a revolution, they've done that plenty of times. They did that in Ukraine. Right? They do that all over the place. So, like, telling me that Al-Qaeda was a CIA creation, I'm like, yeah. I don't even need to see sources for that. It's right in line with the narrative. Right? It's what they always do. It's what they've always done. And even if Al-Qaeda wasn't directly created by the CIA, like, it's exactly how the CIA operates. They fund and train far-right elements, including Nazis, in order to overthrow governments. They do it all the time, constantly. So, what a bummer, man. What a bummer. I was really hoping that I was going to be sitting here being like, UN report came out, guys. Right? Here's the narrative that's coming out from the UN. Oh boy, it's just like the Venezuela thing. In the meantime, it came out CSIS spies were recruiting idiot teenagers and other brainwashed radicals from English-speaking countries to fight against Assad in Syria for years. Yeah. Yeah. Like, gotta get that oil. That's all that's about. Just steal as much resources as you possibly can. That's all it's about. And, like, it's no small wonder that the people of the world are getting tired of being treated this way. Right? It's no small wonder that the people of the world are finally looking at, like, are looking at a place like China and thinking to themselves, oh man, an alternative. Right? It's no small wonder that the people of the world are turning their back more and more on the West. Because the West, all it's ever done is act like the Nazis. Right? And yeah, winter is coming. Peter Dinklage. Yeah, like there is a moment coming, and it's probably coming sooner than we'd like, where we're going to look around for allies, we're going to look around for people to help us out, and we're not going to find anybody. Right? Because all we've done is act like terrorists and fucking Nazis this entire time. Because the hard truth is that that's who we are. That's who we are. That's the hard truth of it. Yeah, who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world. Henry Kissinger. Man, I really am looking forward to Henry Kissinger finally dying. Like, go back to hell. Like, go back to hell, Henry Kissinger. Like, just what a demon this guy is. Alright, moving on. Thanks to inflation, Gen Z and millennials will now need $3 million in retirement savings to live comfortably. It has long been a rule of thumb to have $1 million saved for a comfortable retirement. But thanks to inflation, the youngest generation of workers likely will need 3 times as much. According to a recent analysis conducted by Wealth Care Financial, by the time Gen Z and millennials retire, they will need around $120,000 to $150,000 per year to live comfortably, making $3 million the average amount they need to retire. Here's a look at the role inflation is playing in retirement saving needs, whether or not this generation is on track to reach their savings goal, and what this generation can do to catch up if they're currently behind. The cost of living has risen sharply over the past couple of years, with home and rent prices, as well as the cost of groceries, gas, and other daily essentials, skyrocketing. There will be even more expensive by the time younger generations retire. That's why Wealth Care Financial experts believe Gen Z and millennials should aim to have $3 million for retirement. Like, we're just getting abandoned. It's just abandonment, eh? Like, get fucked. And in the meantime, right? So not only is the cost of living going up, and all the bills and everything going up, but the opportunities in order to even get that amount of wealth have completely dwindled, right? Just like a river drying up, right? Yeah, I could be comfy under a bridge, right? Like, and these sorts of stories, they don't inspire me to continue working for this death cult. They don't inspire me to think to myself, oh boy, better pull up my bootstraps and grind set and work harder, right? Like, the society is doing everything it can to make life harder for everyone, and while simultaneously turning around and saying, oh, if you can't keep up, then you're the loser, right? This psychopath culture has abandoned people and abandoned everyone. They forged our shackles and then make fun of us for wearing them. Like, it really is that straightforward, and it just looks like we're willing to take it. You know, it just looks like we're willing to take it. Only possible solution for retiring is leaving country to developing countries with savings if you can. Yeah. Yeah, and you will have a lot of company there. I think that's the truth. Right? Like, these tent cities are not going to go away. Right? They're just going to expand, and they're just going to get worse. And the solution does really seem to be just an attempt to criminalize it. Get people in prison. Right? Just increase the prison population. That does seem to be the actual solution. And of course, in the midst of all of that, right, Canada's economy has already started to shrink. and that could mean a recession looming, economists say. Canada's economy shrank in July after 4 consecutive quarters of growth, according to early readings from Stats Canada, with some experts warning the sluggish second quarter numbers are an early sign the country is headed towards a recession. The preliminary numbers for the month, released Wednesday, estimate a 0.1% decrease in real gross domestic product, or the total market value of all the goods and services produced in Canada during that period. Meanwhile, Stats Canada reported the country's annual economic growth rate for the second quarter was 3.3%, below the federal agency's preliminary estimate of 4.6% annualized growth. We're already seeing some cracks in the data when you look forward at what it might mean for future quarters, said Nathan Jansen, senior economist at RBC. A recession is generally defined by economists as 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. Although early readings suggest Canada's economy shrank in July, the country has yet to record a full quarter of negative GDP growth this year. Technically, the earliest the country could be in a recession is at the end of the year, if GDP growth is negative for both the third and fourth quarters of 2022. Despite the negative GDP reading for July, Jansen expects GDP growth to remain positive for the next few quarters, owing to the strong labor market. When the pressures from higher inflation and interest rates start to bite more significantly next year, we do then expect a moderate recession, he said. He believes that will only happen in the second and third quarters of 2023, driven largely by the housing downturn. In a note to clients, Scotiabank's Vice President and Head of Capital Market Economics, Derek Holt, was less optimistic about the upcoming GDP numbers, predicting the third quarter of 2022 will see 0% growth. Canada's economy is fitting our narrative of cooling momentum into the third quarter as supercharged growth over the first half of 2022 was likely brought forward at the expense of the second half of the year, he said in the note. Wednesday's Stats Canada report found that industry sensitive to the Bank of Canada interest rate movements were generally the hardest hit. The construction, real estate, and finance and insurance sectors all reported less market activity in June, according to the data. However, industries less affected by interest rate hikes because their costs are not directly tied to the central bank's target overnight rate, like food, hospitality, and entertainment sectors, continued to grow in June. People are moving away from buying goods, which is what they did in the middle of the pandemic, as that's all they could buy, and going back to buying services, because they can now, as things have reopened, said David McDonald, senior economist for the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. Meanwhile, the report said wages were up 2% in the second quarter, with Ontario and Alberta contributing the most to the national increase. Stats Canada said the Atlantic province's wage growth for the quarter was almost double the national rate. While disposable income rose for households, their saving rate, the percentage they save rather than spend, declined to 6.2% from 9.5% in the first quarter, largely due to inflation. However, the savings rate remains well above pre-pandemic levels, which was 2.7% at the end of 2019. While the report provides the aggregate savings rate, Stats Canada noted that the savings rate tends to be higher among those in higher income brackets. Yeah, no shit. Although these estimates suggest ongoing resiliency in household net savings, inflationary pressures on consumption and trends in employee compensation will likely be key determinants of future outcomes, the agency said in its report, noting official GDP numbers for July will be released September 29th. The Bank of Canada has called the Canadian economy overheated and has been combating high inflation with a series of interest rate hikes. The central bank is hoping higher borrowing rates will slow economic activity and bring inflation back to its target of 2%. With the annual inflation rate reaching 7.6% in July, the Bank of Canada is expected to announce another supersized interest rate hike September 7th. McDonald says it's too early to know if Canada is heading into a recession, but noted the upcoming rate hike announcement will be key to determining the economy's trajectory heading into the new year. It's really up to the Bank of Canada, McDonald said. If the central bank rises interest rates by 75 basis points in September and has more hikes throughout the fall, the country will likely head into a recession, he said. But at this point, we're not in a recession, nor are we near recession, he said. We have to see one quarter of negative GDP growth first, which would indicate that maybe we're close, to a recession. I mean, the OECD has us pegged at being in the back of the developed nations, right, in terms of our economic growth and our economic outlook. And it just looks like we're constantly scampering around, trying to pretend like that's not accurate, right? Ligandi says, I posted to Discord a quick Google search comparison between the number of Syrian refugees living in Canada versus the number of Uyghurs living here. Content, I'm working in my sleep and can barely perform after having severe anxiety, paranoid episode last night after work. Admitted to my wife to things that would be toss in your stream, TOS. Oh, if I want to read a positive futuristic story. Yeah, like we're all feeling anxiety and we're all feeling shit, right? And it just looks like there's nothing coming our way, right? What is this? I don't know what this is, dude. I don't know what this is. Yeah, hit those likes or you're a chud, so says Content. Ugh. What am I looking at here, bud? What is this? I need an explainer. I need an explainer. Content's got me looking up at SCP 6001 SCP Foundation. Yeah, I guess so. I have no idea what this is. I have no idea what this is. So, I'm going to move on from it. This is an interesting one. I wanted to bring this one up. I don't know why, but when I saw it, I kind of went, huh? Like, I kind of went like, heh heh. Right? Top Russian oil official falls to death from hospital window. Sources. Ravel Meganov, the chairman of Russia's second largest oil producer, Lukoil, died on Thursday after falling from a hospital window in Moscow, two sources familiar with the situation said, becoming the latest in a series of businessmen to meet with sudden, unexplained deaths. The sources confirmed reports by several Russian media that the 67-year-old had plunged to his death, but the circumstances surrounding his fall were unclear. Russian state news agency TASS reported the death as a suicide, citing a law enforcement source. It quoted the source as saying Meganov had been admitted to the hospital after suffering a heart attack and was taking antidepressants. Reuters was unable to confirm those details. Three sources told Reuters that based on their close acquaintance with Meganov, they did not believe he would have killed himself. Another source close to the company said that there was a belief inside Lukoil management that he had committed suicide, but the source had not seen evidence or documents to support that. Moscow police referred Reuters' questions about the death to the State Investigative Committee, which did not respond to a request for comment. Lukoil is a private company that competes with Russian state energy giant Rosneft. It said in a statement that Meganov had passed away following a serious illness. Lukoil's many thousands of employees mourn deeply for this grievous loss and express their sincere condolences to Ravel Meganov's family, it said. At least 6 other Russian businessmen, most with ties to the energy industry, have died suddenly in unclear circumstances in the past few months. The deaths were all in Russia, apart from that of Sergei Protosenya, a former top manager of Russia's largest liquefied natural gas producer, Novatek, who was found with the bodies of his wife and daughter at a villa in Spain. Catalan regional police investigating the case have said that they believed he killed them, then took his own life. Meganov had worked in Lukoil since 1993, shortly after the company's inception, and had overseen its refining, production, and exploration, becoming chairman in 2020. His brother Nail is the head of a mid-size Russian oil producer, Tatneft. Usually, among Russian companies, Lukoil took a public stand over Moscow's intervention in Ukraine. In a March 3rd statement, the company's board of directors expressed its concern over the tragic events in Ukraine and called for the soonest possible end to armed conflict via negotiations. Since 2014, Lukoil has been subjected to sectoral sanctions imposed by the U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control after Moscow's annexation of Crimea from Ukraine. Lukoil is trying to expand its business in Africa and has refineries in Europe, including in Italy. It has for years faced speculation about being an acquisition target for Rosneft, which has bought numerous oil-producing assets across Russia. Both Lukoil and Rosneft have denied those rumors. So, if both sides agree, chances are that it's true. So this is like a mafia hit. Like, straight up. This is like straight up like mafioso shit. Just like, we're gonna whack him and get his shit. Like, we're gonna get your territory. All this kind of crazy shit. Like, fossil fuel, man. And this is how it's gonna become. This is how it's gonna become more and more here in the West, by the way. Like, right now, it's all like the oil conglomerates working together, right? The oil conglomerates working together in order to sort of all profit. But as things start to tighten and as things start to squeeze a little bit more and more, things are going to get really mafia up in here, man. And we're seeing it in Russia, right? Just like, oh yeah, just like yet another person involved in the fossil fuel industry, yet another person just, oh, mysteriously dying in mysterious circumstances. How mysterious. Gorbachev's legacy, says Isaac, GDP dropped by 40%, wages halved, poverty ballooned to 66 million, millions died under the brutal privatization, 500,000 women were trafficked into sexual slavery. Yeah. No, Gorbachev's a piece of shit. Like, just straight up. Just like a total piece of shit. Like, basically sold the country out. But that's nothing new. That seemed to be in vogue at that time, right? Thatcher sold her country out. Reagan sold his country out. Mulroney sold our country out, right? The difference between Mulroney and Reagan in this regard is that the Canadians actually, like, think that Mulroney's a piece of shit, right? That his party was basically decimated for it. It took them like 15 years to recover, and we had like a whole Reform Party movement. We had like a whole thing here in Canada over it, and finally it brought forth Stephen Harper, right? Which is ultimately going to bring forth Pierre Poilievre, and it's so. While we shit on Gorbachev, I think it's important for us all to remember, like, yeah, all of the Western countries were acting this way. All, like, Bill Clinton, for God's sake, signed a law in that impoverished millions of children, right? Like, getting rid of... He openly bragged about decimating the welfare state, you know? Like, these people are psychopaths, and they don't give a shit that they're spreading poverty and misery throughout their own countries. They don't care, right? They care about being rich and getting wealth for themselves. And if wealth is going to poor people or even workers, right? Well, that's wealth that needs to be taken back. Like, we just shouldn't be surprised by this anymore. You know? There's this sort of like part of me that's like, for a long time when I would be reporting on these things, I'd be reporting from them from this place of like rage, right? But you can't really keep the rage burning. And now when I kind of talk about it, it's like, yeah, like, wealthy people are psychopaths. They have to be. There's no other alternative for them. And when we talk about people like Gorbachev, Thatcher, Mulroney, Harper, Reagan, even Trudeau today, right? These people are psychos. Like, they outright want to just destroy as much as possible, steal as much resources as they possibly can. And why? So that they can have it. That's it. That's what it comes down to. It's so they can have it. Right? And it's not even like so they can have it to improve the quality of their own life. Right? Like if you have $1 million and then you get $1.5 million, the quality of your life hasn't shifted at all. Right? Nothing's changed. So it's not that they even want it so that they can improve the quality of their life or any of this kind of stuff. They want it so that they can engage in this weird little game, right? So that they can have this like pissing contest amongst themselves, and so that they can just have it, and so that you don't. And it's as straightforward as that. Like, we need to rebel against it. There's no reason for us to cooperate with any of this. Right? These people have lost their fucking minds. Well, if they ever had them in the first place. They were born into this psychopath culture that taught them that the way to rule and the way to lead is to destroy everything around them. And that's what's coming for us. Like, these people aren't trying to improve the country. They're completely disinterested in it. They're And how do we know? Because there would be really straightforward ways for them to do it. There'd be really straightforward ways for them to do it. And they're just choosing not to. They're deciding not to. They're just looking at one another and being like, yeah, sure, we could do that. But that would mean that there would be less suffering, and that's what we want. Because this is how these guys get their rocks off. And how do we know that? Because they go to fucking Jeffrey Epstein's fucking, like, pedophile rape island. Like, this is what these guys are into. They're into spreading suffering. They like it. They enjoy it. It gets them off. And I'm daily shocked, constantly and regularly shocked, that we are not gathering en masse. Like, what's it going to take? You get the Panama Papers. Nothing happens. You get Jeffrey Epstein's, the Jeffrey Epstein story. Right? Nothing happens. Like, what is it actually going to take? Right? Like, I feel like if we were medieval peasants, we already would be surrounding the castle with pitchforks. Like, I just don't know what's the holdup. Why are we so dedicated to continuing this path of self-destruction? Like, and it seems like that's the case. It seems like we're dedicated to it. That we've just bought in to the idea that, oh yeah, it's a death cult. We're going. We're done. Right? And you can see this again and again. I've got this. What's the article I've got here? Yeah, this is from Time magazine. Where we'll end up living as the planet burns. This just nihilistic, like, literally, it looks to me like the response to all of this by the death cult is to get us convinced that, well, nothing can happen. So get used to this. Get ready for this. Because we're certainly not going to do anything to prevent it. Right? And you're not doing anything to prevent it. So where we'll end up living as the planet burns. You get articles like this from Time magazine. While nations rally to reduce their carbon emissions and try to adapt at-risk places to hotter conditions, there's an elephant in the room. For large portions of the world, local conditions are becoming too extreme, and there is no way to adapt. People will have to move to survive. Over the next 50 years, hotter temperatures combined with more intense humidity are set to make large swaths of the global lethal to live in. Fleeing the tropics, the coasts, and formerly arable lands, huge populations will need to seek new homes. You will be among them, or you will be receiving them. This migration has already begun. We have all seen the streams of people fleeing drought-hit areas in Latin America, Africa, and Asia, where farming and other rural livelihoods have become impossible. The number of migrants has doubled globally over the past decade, and the issue of what to do about rapidly increasing populations of displaced people will only become greater and more urgent as the planet heats. We can, and we must, prepare. Developing a radical plan for humanity to survive a far hotter world includes building vast new cities in more tolerable far north while abandoning huge areas of the unendurable tropics. It involves adapting our food, energy, and infrastructure to change environment and demography as billions of people are displaced and seek new homes. None of that's going to happen. When are we going to get this? When are we going to understand this? Right? Like, we're not willing to put forward the energy and to put forward the fight in order to actually prevent this in the first place. We're certainly not going to do any of this, right? Capitalism cannot respond rationally to this. The people will come, right? The people will come, and we'll all just shrug about it. We're all just going to shrug about it and just be like, well, what are you going to do? And there'll be a huge spike of homelessness, right? The rent will skyrocket. Housing market will continue skyrocketing. Everything will just go out of control and become completely crazy. There'll be natural disasters and all of this, and our leadership will basically just shrug about it because they don't care. They don't work for us. They're not interested in working for us. Maybe they'll throw some like tiny little placation, like little token of something, right? But they're not going to actually do any of this. They're not actually going to like build new cities and adapt food supplies and all this kind of stuff. Like, that would require work and effort, and they're not interested in that, right? They want to go to brunch. That's what they're doing. They're just having like little chats with one another about how like, it's a thoughts and prayers. That's all they're saying. So it's thoughts and prayers all across the way. And that's true if it's conservative or liberal or NDP or any of these guys. They're not actually interested in tackling this, because at the end of the day, tackling any of this would require looking at the capitalist death cult and saying, you're irrelevant, get out of the way, right? That the resources you've hoarded, we're seizing, fuck off. That's what it's actually going to require. And they're not going to do that. And so, as this climate change disaster, which we created completely, it's 100% the fault of Western imperialism. We're trying so hard to point at places like China and be like, oh, China's actually shut the fuck up. Like, we're the ones responsible for this, in huge measures, and we're not going to do fucking anything. Like, and the reason why we're not going to do anything is because it doesn't matter to the rich. The rich are going to escape to Richistan. They're going to go behind their gated communities. They're going to take their cops. They're going to surround themselves with cops, right? They're going to have their media apparatus constantly blaring out, just get a job, right? Sell yourself into indentured servitude and all this kind of shit, right? And it looks to me like the populace is just going to go, okay, I guess that's true, you know. Like, this seems to be what's going on. This seems to be the fate of humanity. That we're just like a bunch of dumb barbarians scratching our balls. And we're not actually interested in doing even the most basic shit. Even the most fucking basic shit. Like, literally, on a Friday, go to the city hall. That's it. Like, on a fucking, like, pick a Friday, go to city hall. Like, nothing. We're just completely disconnected and completely disinterested. But boy, howdy, are we spending a lot of time watching the Kardashians. Boy, howdy, are we spending a lot of time finding out what fucking, like, Billie Eilish or any of these fucking idiots have to say about anything. Like, boy, howdy, do we really give a shit what Steve Colbert has to say. Like, I don't think that there was any artist that was actually under the impression that the end of humanity would come so pathetically. I think that that's really what it is for me. That, like, when I was growing up and I was imagining a threat to humanity looming, right? That there would be, like, a fight back. That we would fight back in a big, meaningful way, right? And even if we lost, at least we fought back. But that's not what's happening, right? That's not what's happening. There's no fight back. Like, it's just this pathetic decline into like this insipid, like the end of humanity is essentially going to be the sound a balloon makes when it lets air out. Just a... That's it. That's how humanity goes out. I just wish we were smarter than this. You know? I just wish we were smarter than this. I wish we were smarter than... Because, like, I take a look at this article, going back to this, right? The United Nations Human Rights... Like, it's fucking stupid to listen to the CIA. And even more than that, it's stupid that the CIA exists. It's stupid to have this organization existing. It's stupid to set up this, like, secondary governmental system that is obviously attempting to thwart and manipulate and take over the actual official systems that exist, right? That's obviously what it's doing. And we're just stupidly going along with it. And just see people living their lives, like, just absolutely placated. Just absolutely, like, bamboozled. And what's unbelievable about it all is that this is going to affect even the rich. Like, this is how fucking stupid it all is. That the rich themselves have created a system of manipulation and indoctrination in order to maintain social control, right? They've obviously done this. And the system that they've created is going to also destroy them. Like, in big and significant ways. And the more and more I look around, the more and more I see, like, oh, yeah, the people leading us are dumb children. They're just dumb children who never grew up, who have no idea what's going on around them, who are too stupid to actually figure out even the most basic things about reality. And we've given them hundreds of billions of dollars. And what are they doing with it? Pursuing childish ambitions like, we're gonna go to Mars. Yeah, we're gonna take all our industry and put it into space. These are the solutions of little boys. These are the solutions of little boys. This is a little boy being given a whole, like just sitting down and treating everything like toys. And taking his, like, little action figures and all of this and being like, He-Man is coming to save the day. And he uses the magical sword of Elrond to fire the laser beam into the bad guy. And he wins. Yay! And then everybody cheers his name. Elon, Elon, Elon. Right? Like, these aren't solutions. These are fantasies. These are delusions. Like, these guys are talking about terraforming Mars as a way to save Earth, and they can't even terraform Earth. Like, fucking unbelievable. Like, you prove that you can terraform anything first. Prove that you can stabilize your own system first. Right? What are these right-wingers always chirping on about? What are these fucking Jordan Peterson hacks always chirping on about, right? Yeah, you need to clean your own room first. You can't go out into the world and tell other people to lead their lives before you clean up your own house. Well, you want to go to fucking Mars? Clean up your own house. Clean up your own fucking house. Nah, but that doesn't matter to them, right? Because they don't live in the world, right? People like Justin Trudeau, people like Pierre Poilievre, people like Joe Biden, Donald Trump, right? Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. These people don't live in the world, right? They live in a fantasy world of their own creation called Richistan, where they follow their own rules and live in their own reality. And if somebody comes up and says to them, hey, the shit that you're doing is actually destroying the world, they just look in their immediate surroundings and go, what? No, it isn't. And that's all it is to them. Because nothing matters outside of their own little bubble that they can create and sustain because they have hundreds of billions of dollars. If someone comes up to them and gives them a counter narrative, they literally can just eliminate that person. They don't need to listen to anyone because we've given them so much wealth that they can just maintain their own system of delusion. And they are deluded. They're deeply deluded. Like, we're not going to recover from this madness that they're perpetrating on us unless we actually get out and do something about it. Just looks like the civilization is perfectly happy with it. Good to see you, Rusty. I'm in a grim mood, as you can tell. I'm in a grim mood. I think JFK wanted to disband the CIA. A lot of these corrupt organizations need deleted. Probably won't happen in my lifetime. No, I mean, the CIA will fight back. Right? Like, we don't have control of it. That's the big thing. Like, we don't control the CIA. And it looks to me like the goal of the CIA is to just exist. Right? That we, like, basically created a monster, and the monster is basically saying, okay, I want to exist. And it exists essentially to be a terrorist organization for the sake of being a terrorist organization. And it just does things in order to terrorize the population because that's what it's designed to do. It doesn't make sense. It's not reasonable. It's not rational. Like what it's doing in China. It's not rational. It's not reasonable. It's not. It's the shittiest thing possible to do, right? It's a losing game. On top of that, so it's self-destructive, but they do it anyway because that's what they're designed to do, right? The demon organization that they are. Now, why are we worrying about space? Can't even solve homelessness and starvation. Yeah, delusional civilization. Yeah, like we've fallen into this just crazed delusion, and we're going to like smash into the brick wall of reality while chanting like USA, USA, USA. We're going to be telling everybody how great we are. We're going to be walking around just being like, oh, just get a job. Like that's how we're going to be when we smash into this brick wall. And we're not prepared for it, nor are we going to prepare for it. I think that's the big part. Like, I read these fucking kind of Time magazine articles, right? Like, what we're just looking at. Like, and here you got somebody, and I keep saying it again and again, like, why are we writing articles about what we need to do and how we need to change and all that kind of stuff? We're not doing it. Like, we're not doing it. Like, we didn't do it before, we're not doing it now. Right? This is who we are. This is who we are. We're vampiric ghouls who come into territory, kill the indigenous population, enslave the populations of other peoples, throw them into mines, throw them onto fields, harvest resources, right, from their stolen wealth and their stolen time until they are exhausted, until the land is exhausted and destroyed. That's who we are. That's how we've always acted. That's how the West has always operated. No exceptions. There's not a moment where the West has been like, yeah, maybe we should actually give a shit about the land and the people and actually try to build a sustained society that actually continues existing past our own deaths. We don't give a shit about that at all. That's why Christianity is all about going to heaven and meeting with Jesus. That's why it's all about this, like, what's going to happen to me after I die, right? That's why the Christians are hyper-focused on that, because we're a narcissistic, childish culture, right? We don't care about what's going to happen to our children. We don't care about what's going to happen to the next generation. We don't care what's going to happen to the country. We care about what's going to happen to us when we die, right? That's how narcissistic we are as a people. That we literally created a religion that was initially created by people who were walking around saying things like, hey, love your neighbor as yourself, right? Sell your money, give it to the poor, right? And now what do? Now what's that religion telling people to do? Well, if you're poor, it's your own fault. Literally. Like, there's no recovery. There's no recovery. The only way we recover from this is if we stop doing this. Right? Forget about building something, right? Forget about creating something. Forget about any of that. None of that's going to happen. Right? We've never done it before. We're not going to start now. The only thing that we can do and that we need to do is to stop. Is to stop this fucking madness. Is to come together as a people and literally say, this has to end. And there's nothing else to be done. And it just looks like no one's interested in it. I don't really know how to live in this world like this, you know? I don't really know how to exist in this world like this. This world of, like, total chaos. Where if some rich cocksucker just decides to inflict us with some new technology or some new thing, we all just have to say, yes, sir. Like these fucking smartphones that came in, right? We all just kind of had to say yes, sir, to it. That if you wanted to actually participate in any kind of society or any kind of thing, like I distinctly remember, because I didn't jump on board with this smartphone stuff initially, right? I wasn't like, yeehaw, let's go. I was happy with my little Nokia flip phone shit, right? But I remember I started getting into the workforce and I started looking around and I started saying, and there was just an expectation that you needed to have one of these things. And if you didn't have one of these things, then you couldn't really participate in what was going on, right? If I said to somebody, I'll get back to that email later, right? Like, you'll send me an email. Well, I'm out, so I'll get it when I get home. Right? That was not good enough. Right? Like, and the smartphone just absolutely blew up any kind of boundary creation. And these cell phones just blew up any kind of boundary creation. Now you just need to be completely available 100% of the time. And if you're not available 100% of the time, then you don't get the job, right? You don't get the promotion, you don't get the raise or anything. Not that they're giving any of those things out anymore. And there's just no moment where we actually ask, like, what's the point of this? Like, is this good? Is it good? What's going on? Is it beneficial for us to have these technologies just sort of coming in and inflicting us? Is it good that we have all of these, like, signals and all this noise cluttering up our lives? Is it good? The society should just stay home. Like, we should all just go to bed and just not get up. Like, let nature take it back over. Like, let the natural world come and take it back over again. Because we're fucking it up. Like, we're fucking it up. Yeah, grow indoor or outdoor veggies. Do what you can. Do anything you can. But, like, because God help us, the people that rule us are not interested. Like, the only thing they're interested in is convincing you that they're interested. That's it. They're not interested in actually helping. They're not interested in actually pursuing any of this. What they're interested in is just convincing you that, well, we got to deal with the crisis of us completely ignoring the problem, right? You've got to do something about it. So you've got to figure out what to do about it, while we completely abandon you, just like we always have. I'm sorry, guys, if you're listening to this being like, oh wow, this is like the hard shit right here. But I don't know. When do we have the hard conversations? When are we supposed to have the hard conversations about what it is to live in a society that's destroying itself? Right? When do we have the hard conversations about the fact that we have been abandoned and that this is a system of extraction? Right? Like this fucking Time magazine article, I was planning on reading the whole thing, but like I started, I'm just like, this is just like fantasy porn. This is like what is that called? What is that? The fan fiction, right? Like this is just like somebody writing a fanfic about reality, being like, oh man, it would be so great if we could institute global freedom of movement, right? It would boost national economies as well as saving or improving billions of lives. Open borders, it would fair to assume, result in large flows of people. Oh wow, yeah. What a great idea. Here's all my reasons for why it's such a good idea. Yeah, ha ha ha. It's not different than like writing on like a forum about Twilight, right? It's just like fantasy porn. Like it doesn't matter, doesn't mean anything, doesn't change anything. It's not going to change anything, right? It's just like a person trapped in their own room, being like, if I was the king of America, I would, you know, and they just assume. My favorite part about it is they're not even saying like, hey, we can actually still prevent this. We actually can. Like, I believe it. And I will always believe it. Because unlike these fucking losers and these fucking hacks, I actually think that the Earth has some power to it. Right? That this isn't just like a dead, inert, lifeless nothing that we're on. Right? That this is a large-scale organism that we are just inhabiting, that has far more power than we like to admit it does, if we even think about it. And we're just so caught up in our own narcissistic self-worth that we don't acknowledge that, like, yeah, like, the Earth can heal itself. It absolutely can. It created a garden on a rock in the middle of space. Like, we're not gonna fucking ruin it. We're gonna ruin ourselves and our own ability to live on it, right? But it's gonna do exactly what the Earth has always done. Once it's rid of us, this parasite that's doing everything it can to destroy itself, once we're gone, it's gonna revert back to a garden. That's what it's gonna do. And how do we know? Because that's what it's always done. That's what it's always done. That's how it wants to be. Right? Like that's what it wants to do. We should let it. We should put down our fucking weapons. Put down our fucking drills. Right? Put it all down. And just let the Earth do it. Because it can, and it did, and it has, and it will. I used to think those apocalyptic movies and TV shows were cool. Now I think we can actually reach that in a few years or at the end of the decade. Yeah. Yeah, like, when I was a kid, they were always kind of like, ah, cool, but now you see that they were actually a warning. Like a real warning. Yeah, humans have only been around for a blink or two. The Earth's just going to recycle and create something new. That's right. I'm really rooting for the cockroaches. I think the cockroaches are the things that are going to make the next stab at it. Right? The cockroaches will take over. And at least the cockroaches will probably do better than us, I think. I think the cockroaches are going to do a lot better than us because I think the cockroaches have actually have a survival instinct. That's kind of the big difference, I think, between us and the cockroaches is that we don't seem to actually have a survival instinct. Like, we kind of have like a low-level version of a survival instinct, right? Like, we've got a survival instinct to a point, but like, it's clear that there comes a point in the human experience where the survival instinct is overwhelmed by the death instinct. That humanity does seem to really revel in its own self-annihilation. That it kind of wants it. Right? That's something I talk about a lot, and I've been thinking about a lot recently. I think that humans want to destroy themselves. And there's really no other explanation for what we're seeing anymore. That any rational, thinking, intelligent, survival-based creature of any stature whatsoever would absolutely be like, yeah, we gotta make some decisions for our survival here. Like, we're not, what are we fucking doing here? Like, we want to live, we want to flourish, we want to be in charge, we want to do this kind of stuff, right? And I think the cockroaches are probably going to be like that, right? They seem to have that in them. Whereas we just seem to get caught up in toys and gizmos and gadgets and the novelty of everything. And really, once it comes to a point of like, oh, hey, it's this is all going to wipe you out and destroy us, it seems like we're just like, yeah, well, okay, right? Let's just jerk off and have a good time, do as much drugs as we possibly can on the way down. Seems to be the attitude. Content writes, it would be interesting to see what would happen if all militaries just parked and did nothing for 5 years. Let trade and production do its thing. I wonder if it would create a cooling effect. Well, I mean, we saw over the pandemic period, it would because we were told to stay home, right? Very simply, everybody just stayed home for a little while. Emissions declined immediately, and you saw all of those stories, right? That the humans stopped their activity, and like the dolphins returned, and like these animals came back, and like all of this kind of stuff, right? It would be fast. Like, I'm deadly serious about this, guys. That if humanity just shut the fuck up and sat in the corner and didn't do fucking anything for a year, that we could solve this problem. That would get it done. Like, the Earth is very capable of repairing itself. It's extremely capable of it. And it knows how to do it. It knows what to do. It knows precisely how to solve these problems. And we're just in the way. We're just in the way. And it just looks like we're in the way because we want to commit suicide at this point. It's like the train is coming and we're just having a party on the train tracks. Entomologists estimated that there are approximately 1 to 2.8 trillion cockroaches are found worldwide at a single time. Yeah, and that was only people staying home too, right? Industry did not shut down. Right? So, like, we can do it. We can do it. We're just choosing not to. Because I think that we just want to have a big party before we die. That's all. Because the culture has gone completely narcissistic. Everything's just me, right? The wealthy don't give a shit about anything other than themselves and their self-glorification, right? So why create anything? Why leave any legacy whatsoever? None of it matters. And if the system is going to kill us anyway, then we should kill it back. That's the attitude. Like, it's demonic what we're doing. It's demonic what we're doing. And we're going to turn the place into hell. For sure. While pursuing these demonic impulses. Just like consume as much as we can. Eat as much as we can. Destroy as much as we can. Right? Take pleasure from destruction. Right? Like psychos like John Bolton do. Right? Like take pleasure from devastation. This place could be so cool. I think that's the thing that really fucking pisses me off the most. Like, this place could be really cool. We could all just be chilling out, living very relaxed lives, right? Bumping around, saying hi to your neighbors, right? Pursuing like arts and sciences and discovery, not only of the self but of the society that we live in, right? We could be engaging with one another in this very relaxed sort of manner. Food and shelter, everything all taken care of. Like we could literally create systems to where the outcome is life. Like, people could have kids. Everything could just be relaxed. You'd engage in the work that was necessary, right? And the work that's total fucking bullshit would just go away, because it wouldn't matter. And we're just choosing this like gaudy, neon-filled, like car-based shithole, just awful garbage society. We're just choosing it, and we want it to be this way. It's annoying. It's annoying. There's always just like a little part of me that's like, man, I could just go get a cabin out in the woods, like rejoin the wilderness. But even that's like, okay, $100,000 for the plot of land, right? That even that they've structured the whole thing so that you can't even get like your little shitty plot of land out in the middle of nowhere anymore, right? Land's no longer free. They don't hand that out for free like they used to. Yeah, remember that article that suggested nuclear war might help the climate? But then we were just wondering why people had to die by the blast instead of just firing them off somewhere safe. Like... like, humanity wants to die. It wants to. Like, if we buy into the idea that humanity is like a consciousness unto itself, that we're not just individuals, but there is a collective consciousness, right? That collective consciousness wants to die. I really think that that's the truth. That the burden of our own existence has overwhelmed us, and we are just allowing the suicide impulse and the call to the void to overwhelm us, and we're certainly not capable of the self-analysis required to reclaim our own selves and our own consciousness and avoid these catastrophes, like to avoid, like, and it's not, it hasn't been a small amount of time that like we've been talking about this, right? We like climate change issues have been on the table since at least the 60s. The powerful people in the conversation have been talking about them since the 80s at least. Right? Their own people and their own scientists and their own everybody have been saying for forever, hey, this is an issue, we should do something about it. And instead of doing something about it, what are they doing? They're just ramping it up. They're just ramping it up. And it persists to the modern era. You end up with these Republicans, right? This fucking Nazi organization that's hell-bent on the destruction of the species. They want it. Right? And you take a look at the ethos of the Christian cults, right? And their whole ethos is like, life will be better after we all die, right? We're all going to ascend to heaven, right? And the end times will bring back Christ, and Christ will reign on heaven, right? Why would you want to try to stop the apocalypse if this is your attitude towards it, that life's going to be better? Yeah, the powerful has talked about climate change as early as the 1800s, actually. Yeah. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I see this a lot when I'm watching, because I watch my own sources and my own people and get my news from other people and pay attention on all of this. But everybody just seems to be bouncing from one thing to another, to another, to another. And it really does seem like we've entered this moment of mass distraction. Because there isn't like a big thing that's happening. I mean, Biden's student debt relief, I guess, right? But like, we don't really want to focus on the only thing that actually matters, right? Which is, are we going to survive? We're not actually interested in that conversation. We're gonna do another video about Ben Shapiro, I guess. We're going to do another response video to someone like Peterson. We're going to do another, oh, do you hear that Lex Freeman had this guy on his podcast? We're going to do another response video to Joe Rogan saying something crazy, right? Oh, did you hear what Chappelle said? Oh my God, right? Oh man, you'll never hear what Kim Kardashian, did you hear Kim Kardashian broke up with what's his name and now she's with this guy? Right? I can't believe she's with that guy. It's unbelievable that that's all happened. Like, it's all just so fucking fake. And I think it's all done because we're just too afraid. We're too afraid to actually like slow it down. That if I start slowing it down, let's have some silence for a minute. And I'm as guilty as this is the next person. Right? Well, what do they call that? They call that dead air. And people are just going to drop out. You guys are going to stop listening. And if you stop listening, that's going to hurt my bottom line. Right? So I just got to keep the song and dance up. Keep talking. Right? That's the whole shtick. Because if we actually slow down the thing, right? If we actually slow it down and actually just focus in on the bigger questions. Like, what are we even doing here? What are we even doing here? Like, we all just kind of came into this reality and here we are. And it's chaos. It's just utter chaos. And we're all just sort of dealing with it and swept up in it. And if you pause and you ask the simple questions, the easy questions, but the big questions, what is this? Like, what is this? Tinker writes, I've contemplated this question my whole life. I think Earth would be better if we did not exist. Even knowing we're capable of good, I think our evil is too powerful. To me, it's not like, don't get me wrong, I think there's evil. I think that there are evil people. I think we know who those evil people are, right? If you're getting on a flight to go to a pedophile sex island to have sex with children, you're evil. To me, it's our capacity to be entranced by nobility that really does it, right? That we can we can really dedicate our entire lives looking at sparkling lights. And I'm as guilty as anybody else in that regard, right? That it's just like, get into that grind set. Get into that grind set and just grind it away. And some kind of new thing comes along. And there's always a new thing these days. There's always something new. There's always some sparkling innovation. There's always some kind of toy for us to interact with. And I think that more than anything is what's really doing us in. That at the end of the day, we're just monkeys. That we have this sort of high-minded ideal of what humanity is, and we have this high-minded idea of our humanity and all of this, but at the end of the day, we are just monkeys. Like, we're monkeys that have created a slightly more complex language structure, right? And we're monkeys that have used that slightly more complex language structure to enter abstract spaces and create technologies that other monkeys don't have access to. But we haven't evolved beyond that. We haven't evolved beyond, like, when I see the great apes, like, living in the wilderness, we're not different. We're truly not different. That the only thing, in my view, that separates us from the other apes and monkeys that exist in the world is that we figured out a slightly more complex language structure. To me, that is actually it. That, like, we started to put in alternative sounds, which created a more alternative way to look at the world. We were able to communicate abstract ideas like love, like mortality, right? Because I'm of the belief that, like, apes and these creatures, they understand all that, right? They understand all that, right? Yeah, but John, their asses hang out. We have pants. You ask me, Cotton, that's a significant step down for us. I strongly believe that. These monkeys walking around and they're just like as they are and they're just being what they are. I'm just like, fuck yeah. That's living. This shame that we've built into our society, this shame that we have in our culture, like that we're supposed to be ashamed of one another, and that we're supposed to be ashamed of all of that. Like, so much so that we've enshrined that shame in our religious structures and our spiritual understanding. Like, it's not an improvement. It's not an improvement. And we're just like, we're taking the worst aspects of what it is to be alive and enshrining them into our culture and in our civilization, right? We're enshrining fear, we're enshrining shame, we're enshrining guilt, and saying if you don't feel these things, you must have a mental illness. That's my favorite, right? If you can't sit behind a computer for 8 hours a day and tolerate the grind set that capitalism insists, you must have a mental illness, take these pills. Right? Like, I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of being told how great we are. I'm so tired of trying to convince themselves and each other that, oh, we're this great advanced civilization and this great advanced species. Look at all the great things that we've done. When what is it for? Exactly. Like the only thing that you have that has value is your own time. That's it. Time is the only thing that has value in your life. Even though even that is an abstraction, time may not exist. But the amount of experience, the amount of time you have to experience, that's literally the only thing that has value. And we just hand it over to psychopaths to do their work for them so that they don't have to. Because what are they trying to do? They're trying to get time. That's what they're trying to get. They're trying to get your time so that they can have their time. Right? They're trying to get you to make their food for them. They're trying to get you to make their bed for them. They're trying to get you to clean up after them. They're trying to get you to do all the farming. They're trying to get you to build all the buildings. They're trying to do all of that. Why? So that they can just be the parasites that they are. And we're supposed to worship these men. Like, that's the other part of it, though. I just am no longer... I just can't tolerate this. Like, what are you talking about? Like, guys like Elon Musk, Trump, Biden, like the Warren Buffett, Gates. Like, shut up. Like, I'm exhausted with this. I just feel like I'm listening to stupid monkeys chitter about how big and bright the sun is. It must be a god. Like... Yeah, and we're all sacrificing ourselves to this, like, God we've created. We created a God. It's called money. Right? If you can't get money, then you don't even get to eat. You don't get food. You don't get shelter. If you can't get money. What is that but worship? Like, what is that if not worship? Like, is that an improvement? Because you know what the other species are doing? You know what the apes are doing? They're walking around fucking getting food. Just eating food. Because you know what the earth does? Constantly shits out food. Constantly shits out food. And now here we are, caught in this system we've created. This and what are the positive outcomes? What are the things that we're all supposed to say, like, oh, well, this is certainly a positive outcome, right? Increased life expectancy, right? There's a positive outcome. It's odd that a suicidal species would look at increased life expectancy as a positive. It's odd that a species that is so dedicated to self-destruction and self-immolation actually turns around and says, oh yes, but look how we've increased the length of time that people get to live in the world as we destroy ourselves. It's an odd little paradox. It's an odd little thing that we do. Like, and I'm tired of pretending, you know? I'm tired of pretending that this weird little cult that we've all erected around us, the fucking Bank of Canada, the fucking Federal Reserve, fucking all these like weird little cultish churches that we call banks, right? I'm just sick and tired of pretending like these things have authority as they actively work to destroy us. Like, this is a fucking death cult. And I'm tired of pretending like it's anything else. I'm tired of pretending like these institutions have credibility or authority or the right to rule or consent to rule. Because they don't. Because they don't. Because all they're trying to do is uphold a god of their own creation that we're all supposed to sacrifice our entire lives to in order to worship and sacrifice to this god that is ultimately betraying us and destroying us. Because we've taken our fake little god that we created and we're pitting it up against the power of the earth itself. And we're going to find out pretty fucking quick. We are finding out pretty fucking quick that if we take our dumb little weird little god and pit it up against the power of the universe and the power of the earth itself, what the theologians would say the power of the one true God, we're going to find out pretty quickly who the winner is. And it's not going to be us. Not even close. Not even fucking close. And all of our dumb, stupid glass buildings, and all of our moronic little streets, and all of our little Tonka toy cars, and all of our little fucking helicopters and yachts, and all of this kind of stuff are just gonna blow up. They're just gonna turn to rust. They're just gonna rot. Maybe some of them will remain as a little monument of our own stupidity and our own inability to acknowledge what reality actually is. Our own inability to actually look at the world and be like, yeah, the world is the grass and the trees. The world is the ground and the sun, the atmosphere, the air. The world is the life that is produced. The world is the ocean. The world is the animals. The world is us. It's not this weird little paper god we made that's doing everything it can to destroy all of that. I don't know how to talk to the fucking simps of capital anymore. I just don't know how to. Like, it feels like you're talking, like when I end up talking to these guys, it feels like I'm talking to a baby. It feels like I'm talking to somebody who's genuinely trying to convince me that Santa Claus is real. Like, that's actually trying to seriously convince me that Santa Claus is real. They're like, well, I went to bed and then I went up and there are presents. Huh? How do you explain that? There are presents. And if you say, dude, like, it's your parents. Like, your parents are putting the presents out. They wouldn't do that. Why would they? They wouldn't tell me that. They wouldn't lie to me like that. Why would they lie to me like that? They're not telling me this. No, Santa is real. You're just jealous of Santa. Because Santa doesn't bring you any presents, does he? No, Santa doesn't bring you any presents. So, you know, you're just jealous. It's the same kind of dumb shit. Like, it's the same shit. If you want presents from Santa, then you just got to be nicer. You just got to go do nice things. You should go get a job trying to be nice to Santa. It's the same. And yet we're supposed to actually talk to these people as if they're intelligent, credible, interesting, right? Like, why don't I do like a takedown video of Ben Shapiro, right? Why don't I do yet another talk back to Jordan Peterson? Because they're babies. They're little babies that never grew up, literally defending a false god, a creation that doesn't exist in the first place, so that they can literally burn the planet down and then deny that that's what they're doing. And this is how we're gonna engage. This is our engagement in the world. These are the conversations that we're having with these like Nazi level psychos. I hope you guys are getting something out of this. Content. Content creation. Like, you see this in the whole quiet quitting conversation, right? That's still floating around. This whole quiet quitting, this gaslighting, overt grift, obviously dreamt up by one of these fucking childish baby psychos, trying to convince workers that it's bad to actually have a life, and if you don't just sacrifice your life to the death cult, then somehow you're a loser. That's my favorite. Kevin O'Leary calling people losers, right? Hey Lou, tuned in late, keep on dooming in the free world, John. Well, this one's especially doomy. This one's especially doomy today. I have a gluten intolerance, so I don't drink beer. I drink wine. I've been drinking a lot of seltzers recently, like White Claws and things like that. But I'm still exploring that. The gluten intolerance is kind of a new one, so. I just want us all to live in peace, you know? That's all I want. And I don't know why it's so difficult. I don't know why it's so difficult for us to live in peace. And for us to just be pleased with the existence that we have. Why do we need to plunge into this war? Why do we need to continuously antagonize and strip the society, and strip the civilization, and strip the world around us? Like, why can't we just all get along? Why can't we live in peace? Hi, John, everyone. John, there has to be a silver lining to all this chaos and nonsense. I keep telling myself that every day. I mean, wondering your take on the degrowth economic movement. I noticed some right-winger types try and lump it in with the WEF, Depop, eats the bugs, etc. I mean, like, my position is that we stop. We just stop doing this stuff. So I guess that's degrowth. Right? You're having a Matt Christman moment. Matt Christman is like my spirit animal, I have to be honest. I really respect Matt Christman. I really do. I think he sees things for as they are. And he and I think, have similar struggles with what's happening in the world. Like, it's all senseless. Like, all of this manic desire for growth. Well, a growth for what? A growth to do what? A growth to achieve what? A growth for what purpose? To what end? For whose benefit? Certainly not ours. Right? Certainly not ours. And what's the goal of the degrowth movement? It's to degrow. It's to stop. It's to stop looking at growth as a positive, and it's to say, like, hey, living sustainably, right, assumes that we have to live in a world that where we have to acknowledge the limitations of the earth. We have to acknowledge that the earth has given us limitations, and that we have grown outside of those limitations. And that the earth is giving us very clear signs, right? Very clear signs that we are doing exactly that. And if we want to come back into line with the earth, right, we need to degrow. And if we don't actively do it, and I think this is crucial to understand, is that if we don't, the earth will do it for us. Right? So it's going to happen either way. It's going to happen either way. The question is it going to happen because we decide it's going to happen? Is it going to happen because we look at the reality of it and face it head on, and we say, okay, we need to come back into a sustainable alignment with the earth. We need to accept that there are limitations to what we can and cannot do. We have to accept that there are places where the system and the structure of the earth will not tolerate us to go, right? There are boxes that we cannot open, right? These sorts of things. We can face that and acknowledge that and say, okay, and then purposefully move forward with an understanding that we need to actively get on that trajectory with that mindset, or the earth will do it for us. Which one of those two do you think will be easier for us? And like the right-wing types lumping it in with the, because the WEF does talk about this kind of stuff, right? Like that subject comes up. Of course it does, right? Which again is like another one of these, like why I don't think it's too terribly helpful to actually demonize these organizations where like the Bilderberg Group or WEF or any of these things, where people come and actually like rich, powerful people and politicians are going to get together and have conversations. Like they're going to do that. And moreover, you want them to do that, right? And that's going to be true if the society is communist. That's going to be true if the society is capitalist. It's just going to be that way. It's always going to be that way. It's never not going to be that way, right? And the trouble I have with the right-wing types trying, like, they don't even really know what's being said at these places. And sometimes scary things are said, right? Sometimes people sound like fucking Nazis when they're at these places, right? For sure. But just because it's said at the WEF doesn't mean that it's not correct. I don't agree with degrowth. I would rather we do a controlled retreat so that most vulnerable doesn't die outright. We need industry and supply. Yeah, if for anything, so people can get insulin. Yeah, that's a good example. To me, I think there isn't a path forward where the state allows industry, like right now the state is essentially allowing industry to do what it wants, right? And that's just not going to work. It's just not going to be how it is. That moving forward, states are going to have, like, we are going to experience an increase in nationalism. I just don't think that there's two ways about it. Like, and whether or not that's a far-right extremist nationalism, right? Like, whether or not that's a nationalism that says we're going to purge people or not, right? But we're certainly going to experience a nationalist moment and an increase in nationalism. And a big part of that increase in nationalism is going to be an insistence that if corporate enterprises and if industry is going to operate within the nation, that they should be controlled by the state, because at least the state is theoretically responsive to the demands of the populace, right? And I genuinely think that that's like the only actual way forward, that even people who are in industry positions are beginning to really ask themselves, is this a good idea? Is this a good way to organize ourselves? Well, and look, forget about even the idea of it being communist, okay? Like, this is something that I think is important. Like, the stupidest thing that we have ever done as a species Like, the stupidest thing we have ever said out loud and committed to print as a species is the idea that we can organize advanced societies without planning. Let the free market decide. Let chaos reign. It is, without a doubt, objectively and abjectly, the stupidest thing that any civilization and any leader has ever said about anything ever. Like, you would have to go back to like ancient chieftain societies where they thought the sun was alive, or they thought that like if the wind blew westward on a Tuesday, then that meant that the ghosts were telling us that the crops would be good. Like, you got to go back to that kind of shit to see stupider statements made, right? The idea that we can organize an advanced industrial society by allowing chaos to reign. Everyone just do what you want, right? It's childish, baby-brained nonsense. You cannot organize a society without planning. And so, forget about even the idea of a communist plan. Forget about communism, or the distinction between communism or capitalism. Literally, people in the society just need to wake up and go like, yeah, a plan. We should make a plan, right? This is like people who watch like a theater show and think that it was all just like all the actors and the writers and all that. They just did it, right? Everybody just did that, right? They didn't rehearse it, practice it, work on it, right? None of that happened. No. Like, these people are baby-brained morons. We need a plan, and we should plan. And I say it to these people now, straight up. I'm just like, so why are you against planning? Why are you against the concept of having a plan? Right? Because that's essentially what we've done. We've just said, yeah, no plan required. Like, you can see it with these Trudeau liberals. Right? You can see it with the Democrats. You can see it with the Republicans. Their whole strategy is just like, whatever you guys want, whatever you say. Yep. Well, what's that getting us? What's that getting us? No, Ben, I think that the problem is that there isn't a plan. Right? That each individual enterprise has a plan. Right? Continent is pointing out even companies centrally plan. Right? But their plan is their plan for them. Right? And anything outside of them is an externality. It doesn't matter to them. Right? So, let's pour toxic waste into this river because we don't use the river. It doesn't matter to us, and we need to get rid of this toxic waste. And even if there is a fine, it's actually cheaper for us to do it this way, so let's do it. Right? There's no organization, there's no institution, there's no one whose job it is to actually say, no, you can't do that. Like, you can't do that. Because it's a bad fucking idea. Right? There's no organization or institution whose objective is to create a large-scale plan for the society that operates outside of the plans of these independent businesses. Right? And the independent businesses don't want there to be a plan because that means that they have to actually respond to some figure of authority. Like, so it's just chaos. It's just these big giant institutions colliding into one another. And methane raises another point on it, which is absolutely right. Nobody plans together. Everybody plans against each other. Right? They call it competition. That's what they keep saying. Oh, capitalism is great because the competitive spirit breeds innovation. This is the delusional child brain nonsense that they say, which has there's literally no evidence of this, right? It doesn't, because these people don't care about that, right? They're worshiping a god, for fuck's sake. And it's completely destructive. It's completely destructive. And it has to be destructive, And what's so and then on top of that, it's anti-innovation, because you're constantly fighting and constantly withholding information from one another, and so everybody needs to like reinvent the wheel every single time they want to do anything. And so the society, like, forget about the suicidal nature of our society. Forget about the whole fact that we're just destroying ourselves. Forget about the fact that the whole thing is going to implode on us. Like, billions of people are likely going to die. I think this is something that people just don't want to face. Like, billions of people are going to die. Because the earth is just going to be like, fuck you lot. Fuck you lot. Get completely fucked. Like, I'm not interested in this. And the strategy of the ruling class is abandonment. They're not interested in creating societies that plan or have thoughts or ideas, right? They don't care about any of that. They're not interested in any of that. They're interested in worshiping their weird little god, right? With their weird little dollar sign, right? And if you don't also worship the weird little god, then, oh, well, you're just jealous. You just need to get a job, right? Just trying to convince us Santa is real. Like, here's an easy plan, right? Here's an easy one. This to me is a completely slam dunk, right? Just a total slam dunk, easy. Like if you are out of ideas and you don't know what to do and you have no thoughts and you're incapable of being imaginative or creative, and you literally don't know what's going on in the world around you, you could still build transit, right? Doesn't take a fucking genius to figure this one out. Mass transit is a no-brainer, slam dunk, easy win, right? Take a look at what China has done. Like, this is an obvious, easy, very straightforward, no fucking around, no muss and fuss, build transit. Like, if the problem is that you're out of ideas, if the problem is that you're so baby-brained that you can't actually think about what to do in the world, so if you're like these Petersons or these Shapiros or these fucking Chowders or any of these kind of guys, where you have no thoughts or ideas that have any value in the world, right? You can always build transit. So why can't we? Why aren't we? Right in the article itself. It's based on similar principles to the Hyperloop concept. And that's just it. Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly. Because it doesn't directly enrich the billionaire class. It doesn't equal, like, I put $1 in, I get $2 out. It doesn't immediately enrich them instantly. And so they won't do it. And if you announce a rail from like Toronto to Montreal, they'll just buy that land up and then jack the price of the land. So even on the most low level, baby brainish, tiny, small scale, super easy to plan. Super easy to plan. If you're telling me that your government can't plan a rail, then your government is desperately corrupt and incredibly incompetent. Like, of course they can. How do I know? We've done it. We've done it a lot, right? Toronto has a subway system, for God's sakes. We built an island out of the dirt that we pulled out to make the subway system. Of course we can do it. We've done it before. But this modern system of capital is so desperately clueless and desperately incapable and baby brained. Like, baby brained. That's why the defenders of capital just sound like babbling babies. Right? They're just babbling babies. right? What's the number one critique that people always pin on someone like Peterson? It's like, well, he just talks a lot and he doesn't say anything, right? Yeah, like a babbling baby, right? Babies are just like, when you don't know what you're talking about, you just sound like a babbling baby. And these guys are genuinely standing up and saying that really basic shit, like build basic infrastructure. Basic infrastructure. Oh, well, that can't be done, and you just need to bootstrap yourself. Like, yeah, as long as they can plan and get to their next yacht party, yeah, F the world. No, Trudeau's not going to build mass transit. No, Trudeau is the most lame duck prime minister we have ever had. Like literally. I don't think there has been a worse prime minister than Trudeau. Just like absolutely lame, has achieved nothing, has no legacy whatsoever, right? The absolute epitome of the age. Just a worthless capitalist who is shrugged and said, we'll just let the billionaire class decide how to organize this, right? Like, take a look at how he's dealing with the inflation crisis, right? Take a look at the way he's dealing with the inflation crisis. He's doing nothing. Like, literally, his response to the inflation crisis is nothing. We're going to let the Bank of Canada handle it. Well, how's the Bank of Canada handling it? Oh, they're just bankrupting a bunch of mid and low level people to allow billionaires to get cheap assets. That's what the Bank of Canada is doing. That's all they're doing, right? So they're using the crisis in order to... Trudeau's popularity is still extremely high as far as I'm concerned. It's still in the mid-40s, right? Like, what was the... Here, let's go to... I'm blown away at how people still are like, the Trudeau. Yep, Trudeau. Oh, come on. Trudeau popularity. This is worth looking at, right? Federal vote projection. Conservatives taking the lead, right? Conservatives taking the lead. Which is the spirit of the piece, right? Which is the spirit of the piece. That's what happens in Canada all the time. Still, this is what I'm saying, right? Still, the Liberals are still on track. You can, of course, see like a downward trend for the Liberals and an upward trend for the Conservatives. But they've kind of just been intertwined with one another, right? Why is there adult humans who view any mainstream politician even a little favorably? Yeah. Like, these guys are, hold on. I think it was Angus Reid. The Trudeau tracker. Go it. Here you go. Right? Approve. If you're blue, you approve. If you're red, you disapprove. If you're in this category, you're unsure. Disapproval, 56, 59%. Oh, he's dipping into the high 30s recently. Lowest he ever got was down 31%. That was August 2019. Right? I think this was COVID, right? It really does show you how fickle Canadians actually are, right? Yeah. I mean, there is an interesting pivot that has happened with the NDP. It's worth talking about. the NDP have actually come out strong. 18 months ago, Jagmeet Singh refused to utter the word Palestine, but on August 26th, he sent out an email announcing the New Democrats' position on Israel. It says, "We believe Israel's illegal occupation of the Palestinian territories is at the center of the challenges facing the Palestinian and Israeli people. It makes 13 demands of the minority liberal government that the NDP supports in Parliament. These are respond to reports from Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Israeli human rights NGOs, and the United Nations, and accept their recommendations to states, refer to the killings of journalist Shireen Abu Akleh to the International Criminal Court, increase pressure on the Israeli government to stop its plan to annex Palestinian territory in violation of international law, condemn the construction of illegal settlements, demolitions of Palestinian homes, call on Israel to end forcible displacement of villagers, increase funding, condemn Israel, condemn military detention, right? Vote for Palestinian human rights in the United Nations." So this is an interesting pivot. And it is an interesting pivot. It is actually something that meaningfully creates a distinction between the NDP and the other parties, because this, in my view, is the number one complaint of the electorate, right? That in the Ontario election, 55% of the populace didn't come and vote, right? 55% of the populace didn't come and vote, and we asked them why. Their response was really clear. Something like 45% of them said, these parties are all the same. There's no difference. So how do you create a difference? Well, the truth is that the only way you're actually going to appear different is if you stand up to capital in like a meaningful way. That's true, methane. An issue like this is not very relevant to my daily life, and I think that that's true. Many citizens will respond that way, especially as we're in the middle of we're in the middle of this crisis, right? This inflation crisis and housing crisis. I think that those matter more to the average Canadian's daily life, right? Because the crisis is capitalism. Like, I keep saying it, and I keep telling these guys, you want to create a difference? You want people to see that your party is different? Well, say out loud that the crisis is capitalism. That the crisis that you are facing and the crisis that we are facing as a people is that we have owners who have abandoned us. That is what has happened. That the ownership class of this country is seeking to extract as much wealth out of the country as it can while contributing nothing meaningful whatsoever, and holding our infrastructure and our critical systems hostage while doing it. Yeah, leave it to Tiff Macklem to fix our inflation problem, yeah. There's probably a large chunk of the populace who believes Trudeau is a communist. Yeah, I know, right? I wish Trudeau was a communist. That'd be great. Right? We'd be so much further along as a people. Yeah, can you imagine a candidate saying that? Probably get arrested. Yeah. Or shot. Right? Or shot. Like, the CIA is going to shoot these people. Like, that's the biggest reason why we literally created a terrorist organization to kill people who are anti-capitalist. And then we're all like, oh, I wonder why people aren't standing up and actually speaking out against capitalism more. Because there's this enormous terrorist organization whose only job is to murder people who actually stand up and fight for their rights. You know, the way they murdered Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Fred Hampton, right? And JFK. Like, I would really love it, in fact, if there was an electoral solution to all of this, you know? There is definitely a little part of me that says from time to time, you know, maybe it will happen that way. You know, I'm not a prophet. I'm not a soothsayer. I don't know what's going to happen next, right? I'm just sort of looking at the trends and looking at history and sort of drawing some conclusions based on what I see, right? But I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, right? I've been wrong before. And I've been wrong the wrong way, right? Like, usually when I'm wrong, it's because I'm being too forgiving or I'm believing that nice things can happen. I'm being too optimistic. But it would be nice, wouldn't it? It'd be nice if all of a sudden there was actually, like, let's say, someone in the Green Party, right? Probably not Elizabeth May. But let's say somebody took over the Green Party and was actually like, hey, capitalism is a problem. Like, we have to actually face it and do something about it. And let's say suddenly the populace was like, that's right. Capitalism is the problem, right? We should be focusing more on socialist ideas and all of this. And suddenly there was this big upswell of support for a socialist within a party. And suddenly they grabbed a whole bunch of seats, and there was suddenly, the NDP suddenly had a big swing to the left because there was this huge socialist support. And so suddenly now the NDP are talking that way too, right? It'd be nice. It'd be nice if that happened. Sarah Palin, and God damn it, DM, why do you gotta hit me with the bad news, dude? Why do you gotta hit me with the bad news right now? Can't you see how I'm struggling right now, DM? Sarah Palin lost her bid for Congress yesterday. What a miss. What a miss for all of us, right? We could have had 4 years. 4 years of absolutely beautiful, wonderful, absurd, ridiculous Sarah Palin quotes. We could have had 4 years of Sarah Palin walking around in our lives again, reminding us how fucking kooky and wild she is. Right? Like, and Sarah Palin, she's getting on in years for sure. She's still a babe. She's still total babe. Total babe. I think that this is the greatest loss that we have experienced in years. Is this missed opportunity to have Sarah Palin back in our lives again. Exactly. My favorite hot librarian. Exactly. Yeah, imagine the articles coming from the National Post editorial board if that happened. Yeah, Ben, it'd be great. I'd love it. I would love to read those articles and laugh at those psychos. I would love that. I'd be over the moon about that. Are you kidding me? I would absolutely, like, constantly read that. I'd be constantly reading it and telling and talking about how baby-brained and childish these losers are. Right? Look at them cry. I would constantly be saying that. I'd constantly be laughing at these guys as they squalled like little babies, right? Content. Yeah, no, I'm not going to defend myself. Like, I'm not going to defend myself. Like, you're right. Like, you're absolutely right. The heart wants what the heart wants, Content. It's just like, what's her name? It's just like this one. I can't help it. Alright? I can't help it. She's a fascist. She's an idiot. She's definitely a loser on the wrong side of history. And I just wanna give her a big hug. You know? I just wanna give her a big hug and take her out for ice cream. Right? Abby Martin. Yeah. Abby Martin. Oh, the number draw, Rusty. Let's do it. Let's do it. Number drop. Number drop. There's only going to be like 3 of you. 10. There's 10 of you watching me do this right now. You're the weirdos. You fucking weirdos. I for sure thought that you all were going to be like, oh shit, John is like in the shit today. I'm leaving. Well, God bless each and every one of you for being here. Let's draw the number. Ligandes is in with an 8. We got Oddity at a 4. We got a 9. We got a 4. Cotton man, I'm right there with you. Baldy McNosehair. Lucky 7, baby. I'm with you, Baldy. Let's go. Baldy McNosehair. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Lou in with a 10.
Pick a number. Today's number is 2.
Anybody hit a 2? Anybody hit a 2? DM! You again. DM is like our luckiest player, man. Nobody wins more than DM. For sure. DM, you win all the time, constantly. Well done, DM. May the spirit of David Lynch carry into your life. 2 was drawn yesterday as well? Damn.
Good morning.
Yeah, yeah. Good morning to you, Mr. Lynch. Thank you so much for your contribution. Yeah, 7 looks like a 2. That's right. Oh, hey, good point, actually, DM. You know what, Baldy? We win, too. Let's go. 7s and 2s are the same number. Yeah, Cotton. Yeah, she chews shit loaves. Absolutely. No, I'm right there with you. I'm not defending myself. I'm not sitting here being like, no, well, you know what? Lauren Boebert, she's a misunderstood. What a misunderstood little, like, look at this picture. She's just a little munchkin. I just want to eat her little face. I'm as upset about it as you are, okay? I'm not happy about this, all right? But it just is what it is. It is what it is, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I might as well just let you all know, right, that every time Lauren Boebert stands up, I roll my eyes and just go like, oh my god, this dumb bitch is talking again about this shit she doesn't know anything about. And then I would just take her for dinner and we'd have a lovely evening. Yeah, that is exactly how it would be. I cannot tell you why I am attracted to a woman like this. So to be fair though, Abby Martin, right? Abby Martin's a true treasure. Right? The worst thing that Abby Martin ever did was get married to an Iraqi war vet and have a kid. How dare you, Abby Martin? How dare you? How dare you ruin the potential of our inevitable meeting and the love that we could have brought into the world together? How dare you marry a very respectful, respectable, also political activist who is also very handsome himself? How dare you, Abby Martin? At least this is like, you know, she's actually like on the side of good. Right? At least this is good. Like, at least this is like... Oh, Amanda Lang. Let's go. Who's Amanda Lang? I don't know who this is. I believe it. With a name like Baldy McNosehair? Absolutely. Right? Just because you're bald and you have McNosehair doesn't mean that you're not super hot. A Canadian business journalist currently employed by BNN Bloomberg. Methane's like, they all look the same to me. she's got a real like Gillian Anderson sort of vibe about her. That I see it. I get it. I get it. I get it. Yeah, it's funnier when you're like attracted to a person that you're supposed to hate, right? Like you're supposed to like be like, boo, boo, but you also are like, hold on. Now we're getting into bad territory here, guys. Come on, let's not get all manosphere up in here, okay? Let's not get Snecko or fucking Andrew Tate or up in here. You guys ever see white woman's Instagram, Bo Burnham's Inside? High recommend for those who haven't seen it. It's on Netflix. There's Inside, but then there's also Inside Outtakes. The Inside Outtakes are outtakes of the special that Bo Burnham made, and it's really brilliant. It's really brilliant, and he's got this one song that he does called "White Woman's Instagram," that is just like, it's simultaneously making fun of white women's Instagrams, but also is like a love letter. It's a total love letter to this whole idea of like white women and white women's Instagrams and all of this. I wish I could just show it right now, but Bo Burnham is like he is actually a genius. Like he's a prodigy genius, and his stuff is so interesting because like he's a guy who he gets started when he's 16. Bo Burnham, he gets started when he's 16 years old. And I remember, I watched this all happen. I've been following this guy's career since the very beginning. He starts when he's 16 making songs on YouTube. Just making stupid little songs on YouTube. And they take off. He's one of the first big viral celebrity sensations that come out of YouTube. And he makes the transition into comedy from that. And he was doing that since he was like, for almost 10 years. He turns 25 and essentially has something of a crisis. Like a crisis of his own personality and a crisis of his self. Vanishes for a little while. And then when the pandemic hits, comes out with this. Right? Comes out with Inside, which is just like a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant piece of work. Like it's a real like it's a mastercraft. I don't know how else to say it. Like he makes himself so vulnerable as an artist and as a creator. He puts everything out there while simultaneously taking that vulnerability and undercutting it so that you'll laugh at it. Like he is absolutely, yes, it was the creepiest comedy special ever. Yeah, it has a kind of horror to it. You're right about that, Conton. Like you're not wrong. Like it was very exposing of Bo Burnham as a creator and as an artist. I really felt that way when I watched it the first time. I was just like, he is really like taking all of his fears and anxieties and who he is as a person and his mental struggles and everything he's got and just putting it in front of you and saying this is what it is. And it creates this raw truth. There's something very raw and real while simultaneously and purposefully completely manufactured about what Bo Burnham puts forward, which is unsettling. It's unsettling that he's so honest and so truthful, but so self-aware and so aware of the art form itself. That you don't know if you're supposed to be laughing or crying, right? And then there are some songs that I felt were very illuminating, right? Which was a little bit of everything all of the time. He's got this one song that's about the internet. A little bit of everything all of the time. Apathy's boredom is a crime, right? And Bo Burnham, outside of that, has some of the most interesting statements about the internet itself that you can hear, right? That his perspective of the internet and his ideas that surround the internet as an entity and as an idea are very prescient and very interesting. He sees beyond just the internet itself and goes into the next level. Like, who's consuming it? Who's creating it? Why are they doing this? Right? Yeah, I was waiting for him to kill himself on camera, no lie. Yeah. Yeah, Compton. Like, no shit, eh? Like, it had that kind of quality about it, for sure. Where you were just sort of expecting the end of this to be... Like, you were sort of expecting this to be a suicide note, in a way. And it captures the anxiety and depression of the age. Right? That's what I really mean when I say talk about the honesty that he presents. Like, the honesty, the inability, like, and I don't think he could do it any other way, right? Like, he can't create that. The character he's creating that you see, the character of Bo Burnham that you see, is steadily becoming less and less a character and more just him presenting himself. And he always talks about, even in his specials, he talks about how he struggles with this idea, right? The parasocial relationship that exists, and the crafting of a mask and the crafting of a false image of oneself. How you don't really know the person. You don't really know who Bo Burnham is. And so he's constantly talking about this, and I feel like it's steadily, it's like he wants that to break down. And he does want to present himself as himself. And to do that, of course, amidst like a global pandemic and amidst like this kind of horror show of what everyone's experiencing, well, he reveals dark elements and darker aspects of not only himself but also his commentary on society. Like the bit that he does with Socko, he has like a little sock puppet. The bit that he does there is iconic. Like, that's iconic what he did there, and is in my view like as clear an expression of living in an empire as one could possibly give, right? And it's given by like literally getting the voice of SpongeBob to talk about it, as Bo Burnham is pretending he's a sock puppet. Like, I highly recommend, easy big recommend, right? If you've never seen anything else Bo Burnham's done, you should watch Inside, for sure. Timely, and I think it makes me so curious to know what he's going to do next. And then once you, and then if you actually watch Inside Outtakes, right, which is him taking other footage that he didn't use for the original special and creating essentially a second special, he really reveals how much work this all took and how much effort he really put into all of this shit. And all of the, like, really, oh yeah, extremely anti-capitalist. Like as strong, like, he's literally like one step away from just being like, straight up, let's go communism. Like, straight up. He's just like one, it would literally take one sentence for him. And that sentence would be, oh, by the way, I'm a communist. And it would crystallize all of it. Like his positions are already there, and he already is talking about them, right? That's another reason why I like talking about Bo Burnham, because I feel like here's a guy who, as he goes along the path, could very well take that pivot, and suddenly be talking to a young generation of people through this brilliant art form that he does. But he could be like straight up like, I'm a communist. What are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do? Right? Let's see how free this society actually is. Let's see what these freedom guys actually think. Let's see. Because that's actually the great irony about today's age, is that the very people who are walking around talking about freedom are the people who are going to pick up guns and start killing people for exercising those freedoms. Right? It's your right-wing libertarian types who are the ones that are most likely to use violence when people actually attempt to exercise their freedoms. Because at the end of the day, these libertarian types, when they talk about freedom, they mean the freedom to exploit and have slaves. That's what they're talking about. So Bo Burnham is one of those artists that I actually think people should pay attention to, because I think that he understands simultaneously that art is about escapism to a certain degree, that you're watching this to escape from your own reality, but he also clearly understands that this is a moment for him to express something and attempt to move the cultural bar and attempt to say something important. So, and he's always straddling that line of saying something important while simultaneously trying to keep you entertained. So, I really value him. I think that Bo Burnham is a real special artist and a special person in the conversation. And I hope more people see his stuff, because it's, he's a special kind of a guy. I think my favorite thing I ever saw him do, I couldn't imagine the balls that this took. He was literally like 22, and he goes on one of these like round table talk shows of with a bunch of other comedians. And he's like 22, 23, right? He's essentially a kid. And the comedians that he's with are all older comedians, right? I'm trying to think of some of the names that were on the table. But they were all like in their 50s and in their 60s, right? They're older comedians who have been doing it for a long time. And Bo Burnham, he looks at all of these guys and he goes, I'm so happy to be here, but I'm sorry, but who are you guys? And all of them burst out laughing. And I'll never forget, because there was one comedian, Gary something or other, I can't remember his name, but he looked at Bo Burnham and he just had this nod of a nod of approval, like, okay, this kid's got the chops. This kid's got it. I get why he's here. Okay. Anyway, enough raving about Bo Burnham. I hope you guys are all doing well out there, man. What a world we live in. How strange. How strange to be alive. It's one of the things that helps me when I go do like the capitalist job, right? Because my capitalist job is very straightforward. It's cafe work, right? It's cafe work. I've done lots of cafe work in my life. And if it's paying the bills, and I'm happy because it's not like Starbucks. It's a nice place. It's a nice establishment. All of the food is made in-house by a chef. All the pastries are made in-house by pastry chefs. Everything is locally sourced. Everything is organic. So it's like a high-scale cafe, right? And everything is being ethically sourced. So I feel good about it from that position. And then I get to thinking about what it is that I'm spending my time doing. And really, like, what is it that I'm trying to do? I'm trying to make sure that a person who comes down to the Evergreen Brickworks, and which is a tourist kind of destination, just make sure that they have a slightly better time. You know? Just make sure that when they come into the establishment, they get the best service they can. They get their little moment where they get treated with some respectability and some dignity. They get their little snacky, right? Which, that's fine. We all like our little snackies. And then they go out into the world having felt that things are improved a little bit. And that helps me. That helps me a lot. It helps me to think that at least the time that I'm spending interacting with this capitalist system, I'm trying to make someone's life slightly better. It is kind of like having a lemonade stand on the path to hell. You know? I think about that all the time. Like, imagine watching like a piece of theater, right? And it's just a person running a lemonade stand as people march down the highway to hell. And that's kind of what it feels like a little bit. But that's okay. Because that's well outside my control. I feel like I've done everything I possibly can to run into that issue and to do as I can on that. And I think that's something important for all of us to acknowledge, right? We're doing our best. We are doing our best. I know you're doing your best. I know I'm doing my best. We're all trying. And we're just trying to make it through. Right? And I hope that we can make it through without doing so much damage. That maybe our time here was actually useful to someone or to something or to the earth or to whatever. That maybe simply easing people's passing, which really is what we're doing. We're just easing people's passing as we travel through this temporary place. Because that's all it is, isn't it? Like, you and I were just randomly generated here. We were just popped into existence. I didn't ask to be here. I'm certain you didn't ask to be here. That we all just find ourselves here, dealing with the reality of what it is to be alive and to exist at the same time in this strange environment. That we're only here for a very fleeting moment. And so all of the fear and the anxiety and the anger and the rage and the frustration and the bitterness, the hopelessness, we don't need to bear any of that. We don't. That the weight of all of that does not need to rest on your shoulders or my shoulders. It doesn't. Because before we even know it, we'll walk through the golden door. And what we leave behind will have to take care of itself. And if the best thing that we can do to ensure that our journey is the easiest that it can be. The best thing that we can do, that the world we leave behind is better for us having been here, is to participate in it as little as possible, then that's exactly what we should do. Then that's exactly what we should do. Because I know for me, I'm so grateful for the people who were before me, who built the roads, who put up the power grid, who created fresh water systems, who created the internet, who created the telecommunication system, created the subways, right? Who spent the time, spent the energy, spent the money, spent the initiative, sacrificed themselves so that they could propel that energy down the line and so that my life could be better. I'm grateful for those people. And I would like more than anything else to do the same for the people down the line. But I can't. And so the best that I can say to those people as we move down the line is that I'm sorry it went down like this. We did our best. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy, a temporal refugee. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars, spending a lot of their religious energy and their spiritual time, trying to convince you that you're something other than what you are. That all you are is a little commodity to do all the work for them while they go off and do nothing important whatsoever. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.